if League survives the next 5 years, France, and just France, will rise above
I already know
Korea
where this is going on.
and
Get
China
the fuck out.
as the single best talent-producing country and region in the world.
Right, we have returned for Hot Take Point Made, League of Legends, and we're just going to dive straight in with the hottest take. And this time, not inadvertently, it's actually expressly, consciously Zaboutine come with the hottest take. So hit us with it. What is your take? We don't know what it is technically. What is it?
Okay, so my take is that if League survives the next 5 years, France, and just France, will rise above
I already know
Korea
where this is going on.
and
Get
China
the fuck out.
as the single best talent-producing country and region in the world.
Oh wait, it's not. Oh wait, it's not actually that they're going to be like the best country. It's the talent producing. Right? That's the key thing. They're going to have the talent pipeline. Right? Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Eventually, it should result in international wins.
Okay.
And hear me out. So, first of all, you can clearly see that already half of the junglers in the LEC are French, and the best player in the LEC is already French. The second best prospect in the LEC might be French or close to be, right, with Caliste. And we have, because of our influencer-based teams and all the hype that there is in the French League of Legends ecosystem, you even can see the difference in hype between an event that's run in the suburbs of France versus the center of Madrid. You see that people watch Cater to League, they watch content, there are websites that are...
Oh, you think it's actually like a cultural hook in France for League specifically,
yes.
Right, okay.
Yeah, I think that... And I am a firm believer over the years, right? I've been less than you, Thorin, but I've been watching for many, many years esports, having 17 years now. I know that there is I think it's above correlation. I think there is a causality between engagement from fans and community activity and results at the end of the road. We've seen it on StarCraft, where we kept the hype for very long, and we had this prodigy, right, Clem, that eventually became one of the best players in the world. Our hype for Rocket League is immense in France, and we've been able to produce among the best players in the world. And I see as well in other games like Tekken, Pakistan has a very dense league that was secluded from the world for a very, very long time, and they've been able to produce competitors that ascended even above Korea, which was the epicenter of Tekken worldwide. And I know that the League of Legends is on the decline in America. I think it's on the decline overall in Europe, if you put France and Spain aside. And I know that China, through regulation, has kind of cut the pipeline of talents, and there is no way circumventing this on a massive scale. You can still probably find ways to cheat the system, but globally, they cannot really leverage their demography anymore to create millions of new talents. And if you look at the best performers from China and Korea, I'm going to take both, you see that the same names are coming back way more often than they used to do. And we have testimonies from, for instance, Arnold, the CEO of Genji, saying that nowadays it's getting increasingly harder to find new talents to replace. And if we look at even the state of the current talent pool coming from the LCK Challenger, you have some prospects like Rooster, like you in Casey, Thanatos, but all these guys don't have the luxury of competing in such a dense league the way it was in 2014, where even the 6th or 7th best team in Korea was like miles ahead of the first team in the LEC. So all these things combined, if I take all these trajectories, right, they converge to a point where the stagnation of China and the slow decline of Korea versus the quick ascent of French League of Legends esports tells me that if the game survives for 5 years, this is kind of the breaking point I see where France ascend as the top producing region in the world.
Come on, Keira.
Isn't that a good hot take?
Listen, technically, historically, you're even loose allies, because obviously since the Scottish are just fucking the English, half the times you have to ally with France. Go on there, you going to back him up on this one? Where we going with this?
Fuck, that's radioactive, mate. That's fucking... okay. Could have held hands with you into the Ring of Fire, right? Okay. with China. I actually think China has been a little bit overrated in terms of talent production. As a guy that used to watch LDL, a little hot note, guys. All my fellow LDL brothers, where is it this year? Oh yeah, that's it. Tier 2 in China literally doesn't exist. The match fixing got that bad, right? They just stopped it. They don't stream the games. Yeah. If you don't stream the games, you can't bet on the games. So there you go. Like that's it. To remove the match fixing incentives from society, they have literally just nuked the fucking Tier 2 scene from orbit. I'm pretty sure the Tier 3 scene, which is the University League scene in China, is now the biggest scene in the country. Like in terms of like players participated, which just tells you everything fucked up what's going on over there. But problem is you crossed that Rubicon. You fucking had to say Keria, didn't you, right? And now you've absolutely lost your goddamn mind, mate, right? Because old fucking Arnold and everyone fucking Buzz Lightyear for T1, right? What they don't understand is, right, the players that they're trying to replace are because right now there's this talk of like, oh, the LCK, we're struggling to produce mid laners. Yeah, because you've produced the 5 best mid laners of all time, and of course they're taking up all the fucking roles because you're trying to get another Black Swan when you've got 5 of them. Yes. Like it's not fucking so. You'll see they're still producing ridiculous talents in all the other roles. It's because the mid lane is so crazy. I can even give you an analogy, right? Early on in StarCraft, they produced like Flash, right? But that didn't mean they stopped making great players. Fantasy was still an all-time great player. He just wasn't as good as Flash. That's the problem. They just didn't make another Flash. And because Flash appeared, and the same problem in Korea, Faker didn't need to come along in 2013. It was complete happenstance that Faker came along in 2013. Faker could have came along in 2017, 2018. League just happened to get their very game-changing player really, really early on, right? And who just was with them through all of history of esports, which is super rare. That doesn't tend to happen. Flash technically came in 7-8 years into the life of it. Thorn will be able to tell you about the CS one. So League has paradigm shifted people. If Koreans were allowed to go to an open circuit and just randomly take 5 Koreans, remember, when you take a Korean player out of Korea, he is no longer the talent that he was. There's so many mitigating factors involved with his ability to integrate into those teams. If you just let all these 5-man groups of players play in the open circuit, the Korean dominance would be through the roof. Absolutely off the fucking scales, mate. They would just dominate every region. They'd be fucking everywhere. It is not that they would win every tournament. That's what everybody gets wrong. That has never been the point. They would just, if you looked at the top 8 placings, they would dominate it on the aggregate. It'd be 68, 72% across the year would just be Korean teams. Yes, the European teams, the Chinese teams would rise up and they would create singular entities that could go against the grain. But on the aggregate, they would be the majority of anything. If you want to explore this idea further, there's actually an amazing video from 2015 by LS. It's called Man vs. Machine. Sure. And it's why great players produce other great players, because the hurdle to overcome them. And it's why Korea actually struggles to produce new great players. They are producing good/very good players. You just don't think they're great because the person they're trying to overcome is fucking Mount Everest. Imagine the person better than Chovy right now. How good that person needs to be that is unfathomable. You know what I mean? So that's the issue with it.
Okay. And nothing on the French side, just mainly just the Korean side for you?
I mean, I'll leave you with something.
All right. Here's the problem. The one I can obviously see where the genesis of this take came from, because there's 3 details we can combine, which actually I think we can all agree upon. One is because of actually, believe it or not, political reasons, China is actually artificially cutting themselves off at the knees. I've actually never seen a country that would choose to. I guess the only one that's comparable actually is Germany, because if people don't know, early in the days of games like FPS games, obviously Germany famously had its own school shooting, and they all the politicians were against Counter-Strike and shit like that, even though if people don't know, to this day, the most important Counter-Strike company ever is ESL. It comes from bloody Germany. One of their best events is still in Cologne in Germany. So aside from that, I've never seen an example. And the reason why that's a fair point to bring up is because actually, without going into why, obviously China also isn't like Western countries where in 4 years someone could just change the leader and you're just going to change all the policies. We imagine they're going to be on a certain course for a long time now unless they have some crazy revolution. So I'll give you the China one. That is true. And if you go and look, it is a lot more spotty now, the talent in China. Whereas if you watched like LPL 5-6 years ago, it was amazing the classes of players that you had coming through. I mean, the joke is people like Knight came up 6-7 years ago and just immediately overtook the best players of all time. Like that doesn't really happen now. It's more like you get like a good mid-table player coming to the league, 1xNs of the world, you know, but then it's not like they're being called the best player ever at their position. Then obviously the Korea one is actually mainly based on, yes, as you said, if Gen G was the number one team and they had all the talents, but even they're going, where's the next star coming from? It certainly makes you worry about that because we look to Korea to have the best players ever. And then lastly, I'm pretty sure everyone can agree, if you've watched both the ERLs, I've always told people this, like the Spanish ERL, that's 5-6 years ago, it was actually as good as the LFL. The LFL's been the king ERL for so long that if anything, I could have made my own hot take that actually, fuck doing all the stuff with LEC. They should have just made the LFL its own minor region or something. It was actually a fucking amazing, like, just as people have now seen. Here's another detail that's totally missed, by the way. You know, when people watch the EWC qualifier now and they go, what the hell? Top ERL teams are big. No, top LFL teams. Just stop it there, right? In the same way as I always make this great point that, like, people go Korean esports. I go, I think you mean Seoul, actually. Like, I don't know what's going on elsewhere in Korea, man. Well, I missed something. Like, it's just Seoul in it. Like that's what you really mean. So similarly, the LFL has probably been the best European talent factory in the history of Europe. Like, there's no country, as a region, we haven't produced as much as the ERLs have, specifically the LFL. So I can give you that part. My problem is a bit like Keria. When we try to actually, like, contrast the three regions, though, it falls apart, Zaboutine. Because here's the part I don't get. I have a qualifying question before I go a bit deeper, which is this. When you say it'll produce talent, aren't we also sort of like, isn't the loophole that you're abusing there? It's going to be talent to play in LEC, though. That's the problem, right? Like, as Keira says, if you want to actually have a top talent, it's why the Diablo guy had so much drama around him. He actually looks like he might have the talent to be like a ruler or a viper or something. But I agree, he's only one or two players at that. But the point is, and this is how I would make the analogy, you still do get people like a Diablo come along every now and then who actually might be as good as like Ruler or something. But his problem obviously is he has to displace Ruler to get onto that team, right? Whoever gets produced by the LFL / the French scene, they're not actually going to be as good as Ruler though, right? Like, isn't that the problem? Isn't the scale a bit of what's off here? Like, if I do it relative to my regions, that's why the qualifying question I have is, did you mean they'll produce the most talent relative to like EU and EU will have talent? You don't surely mean that the top LFL players, like, let's be real, there's not going to be many SkewMonds and Caliste come through, surely. You're not really going to be as good as the best Koreans, are you? Is that what you're meaning?
I mean, SkewMond is as good as the best Korean.
Yeah, right? But I'm saying he's the unicorn, isn't he? Isn't it? There's not 4 more SkewMonds queued up, is there?
I think the gap between SkewMond and the other jungle is big right now, but I think that we're gonna produce more and more of people of that caliber. I'm pretty sure we're gonna.
See, that's a spicier take, bro. Because to me, SkewMond and Caliste are like pure generational talents. They're like from day one of fucking, like, essentially in the French context of League of Legends, they are Flash or fucking Chovy or something. Unreal out the gate, mate. That's even the thing. But to me, I also think I doubt you're gonna get another one of them next year. Like, that's you might have to wait 5 years for another one of those.
I think that's I'm not sure Korea is going to be able to consistently produce as good as of players because they're gonna. The problem there is a whole thing of the best talents from LCK Challenger are getting bought and then ruined by the West.
Oh, that's by the way, it is true. If people don't know, there's a stat now where like half the players in LCS are Korean. It's true. Definitely, that is the new way to recruit. Yeah. Yeah,
and I think we don't like the if you take. The best, like Chovy took few times to get to the caliber of player he is, even though he was amazing at the beginning. If he left for C9 at the beginning of his career,
fair.
Maybe he would have never been. And I think that we are gonna able to produce in tier 1 playing in LEC more top tier talent than Korea within like in 5 years.
Okay.
Because just we have so many players playing and trying to get better, even in the LFL Division 2. And even in the Nexus Tour that's below, I do think the grind for becoming the best is as active in Korea as it is in France currently.
Put it this way, a point that you're making that actually he's sort of winning me over a little bit, Keria. Not really, because the ultimate point is just nonsense. That's why it's a spicy hot take to start with. But here's where he's sort of winning me over. Your point actually plays to what he just said, which is put it this way, I do think the most obvious example to me is Thanatos, right? I actually think low-key, brilliant for Cloud9, but that sucks for that player, because that player, for real, if he'd have stayed in Korea, I think looks like he could have gone the Diablo path, and one day he'll just be on, like, T1 or something, mate. Whereas I imagine now he'll probably never play for T1, because he'll play for Cloud9, as long as that lasts, and then afterwards he'll do the Berserker thing. He'll go there and play for, like, fucking DRX or something, won't he? Like, he probably won't ever get the shot. So in a weird way, what you're saying, Keira, the fact that at the moment the really great players just stay and sort of are dominant, they're hegemons of the region, does make it hard for that player not to get bumped off to play in bloody Europe or nothing. Yeah. Like, that is somewhat true. I get what he means by that.
100%. But, like, I always say this to people, right? We all like to laugh at world champion Thorin, right? Okay, Thorin, he's like a funny guy, right? If Thorin was playing in the LEC, right, he'd skull fuck the whole region.
Oh, it'd be really good, yeah.
Thorin would actually, like, drag people. Like, you only laugh at Thorin because of, like, how big his mistakes are on, like, the world stage.
Yeah.
He loses people championships, and Faker's having to tell him to, like, stop crying live on air and that, like. But, like, Thorin would literally be the adoptive father of every single top laner, barring maybe, like, Nako some games. Like, Thorin's a really, really, really good player, right? And Thorin probably struggles to crack, like, the top 8 ever top laners from Korea.
Okay.
He really struggled to get into that list, right?
No, that's true.
And that's a guy playing, like, right now, right? Okay, but he's on a top team and he's got his own legacy, right? Thorin's someone that, like, T1 could, like, theoretically replace with, like, an up and coming talent. They could take, like, a risk, right? But they want, like, long, like, term stability, like, stuff. There's also factors within, like, I will say one thing for Zaboutine, and that's something that kind of goes in his favor, is one of the big advantage of the whole LFL like production line is they're like really good like players will end up like more like won't end up like elo held like the Korean ones, like the Diables, you know what I mean? Like, that is like absolutely true. You're not going to have like SkewMond got to walk into like G2. Caliste is on like the good like version of like KC. They aren't actually having to like grind through.
Yeah, that's true.
Like,
they're not playing for
like,
DN Supers or something. Yeah, true.
Yeah, exactly. So like the how quickly, and there is, you play against someone makes you better really quickly. Well, guess what makes you even better, even quicker? Having good teammates around you. You know what I mean? Like, playing with Caps accelerated probably how good SkewMond is, and having like good coaching and that.
Okay.
And so yeah, like there is a degree of that, and if the French like players can attract more other like French players, and then they can have like a French like team, you know what I mean, like a French like super team and stuff like that. The snowball can be really quick. Remember, in season 2, maybe of the top 5 players in the world, maybe 2 were Korean, or maybe even 1. Like Mad Life maybe was like just the only Korean in the top 5. By the end of season 3, the top 15 players in the world were probably 13 of them were Korean, or like 12 of them were Korean. That was 12 months. You know what I mean? The snowball can be like crazy. Now that snowball's harder now because you've got Chovies and Knights and BDDs and Rulers, but some of those players, like, we'll come on to it, some of those players are not as good as their names, like, suggest. So maybe they can be better than those players, not greater than them, but, I don't know, like, just outproducing Korea is so fucking hard, mate. Like, they've got, like, the population of the whole European server all playing in one place, and they're just playing with the best players all the time. It does have its ups and, like, downs. It's a bold one, Zaboutine. I've
got a couple of angles, right? First, one that I'll just say out the outset, because it'll help people in the future, is unfortunately Zaboutine's fallen into a trap I've fallen into on the Counter-Strike hot take point made, and Kassad has too, which is, in theory, the ultimate hot take is some shit like that. Like, in 5 years, do you know the obvious flaw of it for a show, though, is... Well, no one will remember in 5 years that you made that take. It's like you've set it too far down. It's like basically like the joke is you can actually do this, by the way. You can technically do bets in the UK at betting places that are like, I bet I don't die when I'm 90 or something. It's like, but would you ever be able to collect the bet? You know what I mean? Like it is a fun bet, but like it's one where it's like, the time scale's what makes it spicy, but also it means we'll never be able to actually check if you were right or not, and all remember. Then the other thing is there's 2 more details. One is this, right? One is, Also, you just said talent, which I guess, to be fair, does make your point work better. I already can see an immediate problem here, right? There's one way we could actually test if what you're saying is really accurate, which is we're going to be having a tournament now. It's called ENC, Zaboutine. Every year, there's going to be this tournament where we're going to put... You know what problem you're going to run into? I already did this myself. I already know this. I don't even have to guess, right? Everyone's doing this thing where for every European team, you all fudge the fucking rosters. You all go, France, we're going to be sick, bro. We're going to have Caliste, and it's like, keep going, and then we're going to have this, keep going, and then eventually you're going to have to say Nuke mid lane or so much. Already he's bodged by Chovy and destroyed by now. You know what I mean? The problem also is this, Zaboutine. You definitely produce a lot of players. When I look at the LEC, though, fuck ton of junglers, mate. Not a whole lot of top laners. Don't really see. I mean, the joke is Adam was the one, wasn't he? There's not really a whole lot of people aside from Caliste playing ADC from France. I know there's certain positions you're not necessarily filling out. So I'll give an example. Even though every year La Liga has loads of talent, you do notice, despite all those unbelievable teams the La Liga has had, not a whole lot of fucking Spanish strikers. You'll notice though. Tell you what, that boy David Villa, he was carrying it for a long time, mate. You notice it's always import strikers. So there is that part too, which is true. Talent. Look, at the moment it seems actually to be specifically jungle, which by the way would even make me wonder, because I do think the LFL is the best ERL, if it just means they have the best jungle coaching. I could believe that's true. That might even be a specialty aspect. The last thing I have, it's the last question, is this, and then we'll move on, which is this, Zaboutine. If I am looking 5 years into the future, what if this, though? Listen, I'm saying this, fans, just as a hypothetical, but also maybe it's secretly my dream. What if Kometo stopped being interested in League, and in fact KC wasn't even a massive player anymore? Isn't that a big part also of what this like cultural build-up and this hype and this thing? Like, I'll give you an example. If there's no KC and it's just, fucking Galleons and Solarian and whatever other team ends up existing that's a top threat, would they still also produce the same talent, in your opinion? Is the KC angle part of it?
Yeah, obviously, right? Because if Faker stops, then the game dies, and then the 5 years time mark is well, right? It's I mean, you got to build it the way it is interesting. So it's everything equal, right? Okay. Everything stays the same and the trajectories kind of converge. If you can, because you can have black swans everywhere. Yeah. Kamito hates League of Legends, or there is a 12-year-old kid from France that just is a better mid laner than Chovy. Or Uzi joins the Chinese Communist Party. The first thing he does is have them actually reverse the age thing. In fact, when you're 12, you have to go and join a boot camp. Yeah, there could be some shit. Yeah, if you want to go really crazy, yeah, of course. With Black Swans, we can do anything. Yeah, exactly. So I just assume that Casey stays. Yeah, for this one. Fair enough. I'm getting like fucking Thanos, like reality vibes. It's all good. I know. My reality can be whatever I want. You don't realise, Keria, I'm not the guy who just used a time machine for something petty. I'd use it for some epic shit like that, exactly. I wouldn't be the guy who moves the chair and changes the time. I'd go back and, I'd go fucking Roman times or something and change all of history, exactly. Okay, I think now is where we do a fan take. And you know what? Fair play. This is actually a fan that submitted a take in the past. If you'd like to submit a take, subscribe to the Last Free Nation Discord, go to the LOL Hot Takes channel and you can submit it there. So it's the guy who's from my Discord, the guy called The Dog, and he's back with another one. Here's the thing, if Keira knows this guy on my Discord, he's actually genuinely like our, like, what do you call it, like token normie. He's just like, I think he's just like an American dude who has like kids or something, man, and just follows the game. But as a result, what's cool is he does watch like every now and then the LPL, the LCK, so he also has some mad like casual takes. So just buckle up, because this is an interesting one. I think he's done a decent job of this one. And listen to this. The Dog says, if you are only a fan of Keria and not T1, then his re-signing with T1 for the next 3 years is bad. He says Keria is a generational player who has insane mechanical skills and is also smart enough to warp the meta around him. He is one of the only support players ever who could claim to be the best player at any point in LOL history. He has been consistent in this level for the better part of a decade. T1 has continually made moves that made winning more difficult for Keria. Since 2022, T1 has won 4 official Riot Circuit Championships. Obviously means the LCK and the 3 Worlds. Arguably, T1 was only favoured to win one of those, which was the very, I assume he means the very first win, which was a domestic championship. He says T1 is the org with the most pull in the world, and despite that, they failed to put up a team that could be considered a favourite to win for the majority of their time with Keria. That is a failure that should be pinned to the organisation. It is a waste of a generational player. To add to that, since 2024, they fumbled negotiations, which led to losing their superstar top laner, and did not replace him with one of similar calibre. They also failed to secure 2 of the elite AD
ADCs in the league in Ruler and Viper. In the next 3 years, there's no guarantee that Owner is still elite, Pays is still good, or if Faker is even still playing. They still have Thorin and have shown no signs that they will upgrade him. Last paragraph, he says, Keria would have done better for himself waiting for the off-season and playing the field with teams that have shown they will make an effort in improving their roster and not bank on vibes and miracles to bring them championships like T1 has since 2023. By the way, I'll add on the end there, I assume he means he should have sort of waited for like Gen G or HLE who have like the mega box and got all, I assume he means like those teams he should have sort of, basically it's what I said about Caliste. It's like, even if you wanted to join KSA again, you probably should have waited till the off-season and see what every team offered you and see if you got even better offers. So it's not as crazy as some of the past ones, because like he says, as long as you do the framing at the beginning, it's just if you only care basically about maximising Keria's career, maybe it's not like all sunshine and roses. What do you think, boys? Where do you want to go with this one?
It's mental. It's still mental. It's still fucking mental. No, okay, because it suggests a complete misunderstanding of where Keria's skill set lies. Right. Okay. First of all, Keria, if you were to align like his skill set to like what team he's on, the synergy is like S+. In terms of T1 play a specific style of way, and they have two players who that is like basically like built around. They have Faker, and he has always played vision-based pick comp. That is Faker's style. He is the god of it, and they play like snap, quick engage, like numbers advantage on like the map, right? He's also like the god of that, and Keria has been slipstreamed into that, and he fits perfect. He is able to pick up the shortcomings of Faker in his later stage of his like career in that regard, right? Second, like big point about that, okay? If you ever watch and you break down like T1's communications, Keria has like a lot of uncertainty in himself in that and like pressure situations that Faker provides them. And I can give you the perfect analogy, right? In Dota, there's like 5 great captains, and one of them is Kuroki, right? But Kuroki used to play with another all-time great captain called Puppey. But Kuroki did not become an all-time great captain by playing with Puppey. He had to go his own route. But there is nothing to say that he would have been an all-time great captain. He had to go and learn how to build talent, mend talent, build rosters. And his like arc of becoming an all-time great leader in Dota, he left Puppey and then he wasn't that good. He failed to make it to majors. He failed in open qualifiers. And eventually it culminated in him winning like TI. But he won TI 3 years later. It didn't happen straight away. There's nothing to say Keria would be able to pick up those skill sets and we would be as effective in a different team where the communication styles so different. I always said this. When Faker was removed from T1 in 2023, it did not prove that the other players were as bad or like they were carried by Faker. What it proved is how important Faker is to the communication and structure of the team. Zeus has proven that like people can leave and go and win in other rosters, and someone can be the best player in the world independent of playing with Faker, right? And other people have proven it as well, like past teammates as well. So Keria has got a lot of graces playing in it, and a lot of that does contribute to him being as good as he is. Right? And you've seen it in T1 as they've had to not have Beyond Engage and stuff, and he's had to play Enchanter. That's affected and warped the way Keria is. I don't think anyone thinks Keria is probably the best support player in the world. Now he's playing with Pays in this Enchanter meta. And yeah, he's like that is like part of it. The other thing is, look at the teams that he would join. Your options are Gen G, right? And HLE, probably. That's what we're like theorizing he would like join here. I think of those two teams, he would probably be best on HLE, and there is no certainty that like HLE would be better even than the T1 that would be made with a different support on him on it. Like we've actually like seen them like, you know what I mean? We were all so certain that like HLE was going to be better than T1, and next thing you know they weren't at MSI. Like T1's still a good roster. You've still got very good like players on it. So I don't know, like, there's a lot of uncertainty in fake Keria. I actually think it's a baller move from T1, and it's basically they have identified that this is our, like, marquee player. And I think Keria is happy, like, where he is, and he knows how his bread's buttered in terms of they enable him to be the best player in the world.
I feel like the discussion stops where the very simple question that destroyed this hot take is, has T1 more or less negotiation power than any other team in the world? So if I'm Keria, or if I like a player and I think he's the best player in the world, whoever he is, why wouldn't I wish for him to be in a team that has the biggest negotiation power in the world. Because that means they can acquire talent. The only reason they cannot get Zeus back is because he signed for 2 years, and Korean players and agents usually tend to wait for the end of the agreement and the contract, right? Like the option of buying out and things like this is less of a thing in Korea. But if tomorrow Zeus is free agent and T1 wants him, he's gonna say yes. If tomorrow Faker retires and they want Chovy, he's gonna say yes. If they want anyone in the world that's a free agent and you say T1 comes and sign you in League of Legends. I'm only speaking about League of Legends. I don't know about other esports. I don't think it's the case in Valorant, for instance. But so if I like a player, whoever he is, the best place I can wish for him to be, if he's good, as good as I think he is, and in the case of Keria, he is as good as I think everybody thinks, why wouldn't I want him to be in T1? That makes no sense. Like, ADC is bad, we bench Guma. Who can bench Guma? Who has the luxury of benching Guma and going for Smash and then going for Paze as a replacement? Do you think Paze hesitated for when he... Do you want to play with Faker? Yes. They don't want Honor. They want Curse back. Or they want Canyon. Or they want Tarzan. Tomorrow, Tarzan's free agent. They go, Tarzan, do you want... Yes. So whoever you want Keria to play with, the highest chance possible that he will play with that player is him being in T1. So if you are a Keria fan, the best thing you can wish for him is to be in the organization that does probably the most in terms of money spent for the comfort of their player and has the biggest leverage in terms of audience and results in the League of Legends ecosystem in 15 years. There is no other place you want him to be in. So it is a win-win situation where Keria is probably going to have the best possible career for himself, and T1's probably going to have the best version of Keria because they kind of train him as well to be the player, and he could even continue if Faker stops. I think Keria could still be that key deciding fighter in most of the series, even if he was playing with someone like Chovy or any other mid laner. So I disagree with the call because I think it just doesn't integrate the reality of transfer and off seasons where T1 has the upper hand on 99.9% of the negotiation. The only time they will lose a player is when the contract is up and they're just late to resign them because players want to get more money out of their T1 hype. That's about it.
I'll pick up on what you said at the end there, because I do think one thing that is being missed about T1 with the way he's characterised it is, basically T1 did... Look, I agree that they gambled with their roster, but here's the problem. Even though I, as an outsider, would say if you have players like Zeus and Keria, you shouldn't only want to win Worlds, you should also want to win MSI and LCK, you should want to win everything, because these players are good enough to win everything. It is true, but at the same time... At the end of the day, if I had to reframe it every year, because I did do this on talk shows, each time you win that Worlds, I agree, you were never the favourite for any of these 3 Worlds. The joke is you're actually a favourite for the one you didn't win, but whatever, that's just how it went for whatever reason. Every time you win these Worlds, I obviously did say each year, well, that one win, if it's a bit fluky, you can't just base your whole year off that. You probably should still look for upgrades. The problem is, in a way, I'm right and wrong. I was right because they didn't win any other tournament except Worlds. But I was wrong in that they kept winning Worlds. Like, for them, put it this way, if you have to make a compromise, and the compromise is you don't win anything else but you win Worlds, it's a harsh compromise, but it's enough of a compromise. A lot of people would say yes to that, wouldn't they? So, essentially, to tie it to what Zaboutine's saying there, here's why it's actually not a big deal if even you do think this roster of T1 isn't that good, which, by the way, it looks like it isn't that good at the moment. It's never been the number 1 roster, has it? Right, here's why it's not that bad. I actually agree with what Zaboutine's saying in this sense. If they don't win LCK or MSI, and right now they might even qualify, by the way, and then they also don't win, here's the key thing, if they don't win Worlds with this roster, they'll actually go the opposite way, and they'll be super savage and they'll do a cart. Like, if you don't like Thorin, he'll be gone tomorrow if he fucks up this Worlds and they don't win it. Then also, you're also being a little bit unfair on Thorin there, because here's why, and it also ties to what Keira said about his level earlier, because when you lost Zeus, where it was at the time, remember, Keem was already on Gen G. Like, who am I signing? And unless I can just say to Zeus, here's a time machine. Thorin's about the next best thing. Remember, the other top players are fucking Chinese players, and we're not bringing like 369 to play in a Korean team. That doesn't even make sense. So even though I agree Thorin is worse than Zeus, you had no choice. He was the second best available option, and they still won with him anyway, which I don't even know how they did it, but fair play to him. Also, on the thing you say about Faker, that is also an underrated detail. Right now, because people like Chovy and the HLE people have never won Worlds and haven't even really come that close, right now, the only player in League of Legends that everyone would say, assuming money's right, I will play with is Faker. Because the perception is, remember, it used to be this with the old dynasty when it used to just be the top lane they used to rotate. Remember those stories? There was a couple of years where they literally just held tryouts for top lane, and like people like my favourite player, like Flame, just applied because it was like, basically what I'm applying for is, can I win Worlds? Maybe people who know CS know this analogy. This is what the Team FaZe clan used to be for like 3 or 4 years in Counter-Strike, because they always used to be in the mix to win the majors and win big tournaments, and they had someone a bit like Faker. Carrigan was considered the best leader who like you were guaranteed to win with if you played with. It meant they could even, by the way, not even have as much budget as other people, and people would join their team, because what you would do is, if you were a great player individually outside of their team and you'd already done everything individually but you hadn't won like the major, for example, the perception was just join this team and that's how you're going to win the major finally. So I agree, it made you have like an extra pulling power. I've got a secondary point though for this one, which is, forget the whole team org part. Here's like a subtle detail that I actually think is missed about Keria, and I'll give you a sports analogy. So since everyone in this chat is more of a football fan than an American sport, I'll use football, right? One of my favourite players, unsurprisingly, was Steven Gerrard, because I'm a Liverpool fan, aren't I? But even though I would bitch like a motherfucker all day long about, look at the players he's playing with, you know, look, he doesn't have the best strikers with him, or he has like one great player at any point in time, or look who his coaches or something. Even though I might bitch like that, here's what's kind of fucked up. When I actually look back at his career, he wouldn't probably be my all-time favourite player if he'd actually had just played in Chelsea or something. Because if he played in Chelsea, he actually wouldn't be required to do as many things as he did. Because when he had to hard carry that Liverpool team, it brought an extra quality out of him, which is why some people now even say that he's better than like Scholes and Lampard, who won everything. Remember, they won the Champions League and the Premier League, and they had all crazy stuff. The reason why is because what you can't ever know is the following: is would those players on a team as shit as Liverpool have done as much? We can't know, because it was asking more of them than they were asked to do in the best teams ever. So I want to make a quick point about Keria. Isn't the real reason why we say Keria could be the GOAT support and actually could even be at times the best player in the world because of the flaws of those players we're talking about? Like, realistically, isn't the fact that he played with Gumayusi why you just get to roam 24/7 on the map? Because sometimes Gumayusi's weak side, and they say, you know what, Guma, you're on fucking Caitlyn or something, just chill in the lane, mate. I'm going to go and do some crazy ass gank with Faker and Order. Like, if you're playing with Viper, mate, I don't think you do that. You just stay in lane and smash the lane, which means, unfortunately, you wouldn't be some of the extra things that Keria is. Similarly with some of the meta things, even though sometimes, yes, the meta things were to cover for Gumayusi, mate, if you play with Ruler and Viper, it's about his pick, mate. He takes the Zeri, he takes wherever it might be, the Ash or something. You pick some of that fits with that. You wouldn't be doing the Guma like, I'm going to be on Caliste. Like, lol, that's some shit that, again, was almost built in because of the flaws of Gumayusi. And then finally, even the whole aspect of like Faker's weaker, which I agree with. Obviously, if you want to see Keria win more championships every month, you should have him play with Chovy. Here's the difference. I agree on the shot calling point. I do think Keria looks like he has a brilliant mind for the map, etc. But the problem is, he's sat in the shadow of the greatest mind for the map ever, who the one thing you can't hit on Faker on, he's unbelievable at making calls, etc. So I also, essentially, as much as I agree, if you want to like maximise the championships for Keria, maybe he should go elsewhere. I don't think he'd be the same Keria you think he is. I think he'd just be an excellent support player, you know, like I imagine he'd just be a more, and because of his role, by the way, I also think he wouldn't be considered as great a player. He'd have more championships, certainly, but weirdly, I actually think, a bit like Steven Gerrard, don't we give these worlds even more credit for Faker and fucking Keria because of the weird circumstances where they weren't the best team? Like, if they came in as number one and then they shifted the meta and then Faker made the call, well, they were number one anyway. So in a weird way, I actually think he's wrong in that sense too. I think he would win more championships maybe if he went somewhere else, but I don't think he'd be considered as a greater player. I think the best way for Keria to be considered the best support ever is just stay right now on T1 with all its flaws.
Unless it's like a translated thing, just to pick on something Zaboutine's saying, you never actually hear Koreans like talking about wanting to play with each other. You're never
That's
like
true.
they say it like they say it softly in interviews, like a year into playing with each other. It's like, and I really like playing with Delight, and actually Kanavi was someone I really respected. You never actually hear, and that was why it was really weird when it leaked out that Viper was like, I'm going to the LPL because I want to play with Knight. Like Viper actually looked at the globe and he went, yeah, I'm going to go to China to play with Knight. Like, that's what, by the way, you never hear of that shit. Like, that was some crazy shit. Like, when I remember when I heard that rumour broke, I was like, what the fuck? I was like, that's weird. Man knows ball, though.
That's true.
Yeah. Okay, well, speaking of knowing ball, if you know ball, why not check out our sponsor Prize Picks? Because, of course, right now, they actually even have a partnership with the NBA, believe it or not. So they actually have a cool thing. It's called the Do It Live 2026 NBA Finals Sweepstakes. And as the name suggests, if you pick live squares during the NBA playoffs, you could win a trip for two to the NBA Finals. To enter, you just make a $5 lineup with at least one live NBA player pick during any part of the 2026 NBA playoffs. Plenty of games still to go. Live player picks are picks made after a game is already in progress. By the way, I hope people are smart enough to see that's a way of actually telling you about a new feature there where you can pick players while games are live too. Also, similarly, if you actually pick a player and they do it awesome in the game, you can even cash out before they have an early cash out thing in that sense too, early payouts. Also, it's really easy to do Prize Picks. You just basically pick between 2 and 6 stats projections, and then you just pick, is it going to be more or less than whatever the stats projection is. If it's in the NBA, it could be things like 3-pointers, assists, rebounds. You can also, if you have a favourite player, stack those. So if you have the players that were the triple-double threats, like a Wembyana or a Jokic when he was in the playoffs, or not really SGA, but there's some players out there like that. You can, maybe Derek Brunson, then you can go and you can pick the same player for all 3 stats. So it's really easy to do. And they've also got things like you can just, with one single click of a button, you can share your lineup and show the people what that is. You can also copy people's lineups if they seem like they're successful. Yeah, so basically it's very simple. Just download the Prize Picks app today and use code HOTTAKELOL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. So you just basically use code HOTTAKELOL, and once you play a $5 lineup, you'll get $50 in lineups. Prize Picks, a preferred partner of the NBA. Okay, I have got a take of my own now, gentlemen. Now, this one requires a little bit of historical thinking, but I think it's both spicy, because if you know the rep of this player, that's why I'm teasing it, I'm not saying who it is yet. When you know the rep of this player, I do think this would go really extremely against what people think of him. But funnily enough, I actually had this take already before the show. It's actually going to synergize really well with the aforementioned take about how being in T1 warps your perception of who someone is, and how even their flaws and idiosyncrasies can actually make you seem like a greater player. Right? One of the players I've always been really torn on throughout his career was the Korean top lane monster called Khan. Khan, like the Star Trek villain. Because the problem is, in his career, the most famous detail about him is he never won an international tournament. He was in MSI final with Longzhu. He was in a Worlds final with Damwon. This guy was in plenty of positions to be a champion, and he never did it. And so, unfortunately, he is remembered as he was a perennial choker, and that's taken as like a key character flaw and a weakness. So, as a result, if I ever do greatest top laner conversation ever, he automatically will get disqualified by everyone. Even though the joke is, by the way, Smeb never won fucking MSI or Worlds either. But the difference is we don't hold. He didn't have as many perceived chances to fail that way. Now, the reason I bring this up is my take is the following. Being as there was, this is actually, funny enough, it's just synergized really well. Being as there was those years where in T1, they had Marin into Duke, into, the Huni, and then there was those years where they would just replace the top laner. If during that sort of a time period, with that sort of a roster, they'd have just brought Khan to T1, I actually think now he could actually be, for real, a candidate for best top laner ever. Because first of all, as people have seen, I mean, Doran's the most crazy example I've ever seen of this. Somehow, actually, there is like a magic in playing with Faker that almost allows people who are chokers to not choke anymore. It's almost like, I don't know, you think you with Superman, it'll save you at the end of the day, like, what happens? So, but I mean, the reason the Doran one's the craziest one ever is, I always make the joke that when you hear those comms, it's like, wait, we were just watching them play great team fights. While they were playing comms, they were like talking a guy afraid of heights off the edge of a ledge so he didn't jump off. Like, it was crazy the way they were telling him like how to not int as he was in like. So already, first of all, if I could believe any team could touch this guy and make him win, it's that. Secondly, if everyone remembers at the end with Damwon, he was actually really good that year. I don't even blame him for that one, mate. He was actually pretty, yeah, true, Flandria beat him, which was considered a laughable at the time. By the way, Flandria's had an excellent career since then too. Like, actually, if there's any player can stop all-time great top liners, it's fucking Flandria, mate. So I don't even hold the end against him. I actually thought at the end, sadly, he shouldn't have retired then. He should have kept playing a year or two more. He looked like he could have gotten it done. And then also, I think, quite sadly, like every great player, this happens in Counter-Strike with the player Nico or in Dota with Arteezy. If you have a famous thing where you didn't win the big one, that eventually suddenly like overshadows everything that's great about you, and people forget why. Here's what the people forget is this question: why would we be obsessed with the fact that guy didn't win if he wasn't good enough to? It's only a good point if you are a player like the ones I'm referencing who was so good. It's almost like, why haven't you won? I always say this about people with upset in the LEC. It doesn't make sense to make fun of him saying he should have won if you think he's shit. That only is funny if you agree he is really good. He probably should have won by now, but he hasn't. That's the only way you can make that a diss, because then it's going to be a character failing. Not that, like, by the way, and Super has won the LEC, but if he'd never won the LEC, would anyone really every year be going, Super hasn't won? No, because you think he's just like an above average ADC. So my point is this, right? What people forget about Khan is the following. First of all, this is a guy who won something like 6 domestic championships in the LCK, by the way. He was a really fucking good player, except in certain pressure circumstances. Then secondly, famously, I did an interview with Flame where I asked him, how is Khan in Longdew able to carry like this? And he basically made the point, because at the time Khan had Prey and Gorillas as bot lane. He basically made the point, if you want to be a permanent carry top laner in Korea, you need a bot lane that's willing to be like a go even weak side bot lane. Boys, Bang and Wolf were that. That's one of their best qualities. That was like their whole fucking style was they can let the top lane carry. So I also just think, like, if you were ever going to put this guy onto a team that could have like offset his weakness, and by the way, if you then play on T1, and the type of player he was, by the way, he wasn't some Thorin character. This was like the shy, like, I play the carry pick and destroy the whole game. Like, if someone like Khan's really good, he could be the MVP of the finals, mate. Like, I think if he'd have actually gotten that title, some people couldn't say he didn't win Worlds, and then you look at all the LCKs he'd have as well, he would actually be right in the front of this conversation. Who's the best top player ever? So what do you think, guys?
On you go, Zaboutine.
I think it's a really good hot take. I do think it's a really, really good hot take. I have just one thing going against it, which is I think that, at least to my memory, I do think he has really underperformed in Game 5 in these international tournaments. I think the pressure caught up to him eventually, and he kind of had this mental block, because I remember, I think he played Gravestop the last game.
I think so, yes.
Right? And it was a very big disappointment, because I don't think anyone ever piloted Gravestop better than him in history. He probably can be known as the best Gravetops of all time. I remember this guy was like, I mean, you have the old era of Smeb and Marin and things, and the guy that has been leading the meta for pretty much between this and the Zeus era is this guy. Bean era, I would say. But this guy was so good. Insanely good. And I believe to this day, if he was still playing, if he didn't have the military service, he would be probably playing for Genji. Like, they wouldn't not pick Kin, and they would have went with Can, or he would still play for Damwon. And he will still be a top 3, top 4 top laner. Like, I do believe he's one of these players, like Faker, like that doesn't age, right? Like, he can play for pretty much forever. BDD is kind of the same, has pretty much just had a rebirth of his playstyle after almost 10 years of playing. So I would say that he's probably in the discussion for the GOATs of top lane when we come to the best, not the greatest, unfortunately, because you need to win trophy.
Yeah.
And I would say that if he did play for T1, he would have probably won more international trophy. That said, I do think the other T1 teams during the era he was playing weren't that great either. I think it was kind of the transition phase between the 2016 era and the Honor Keria era. So he really played at a time where he didn't win. He didn't really have a team that was extremely dominating, because I think that's the time of the history where China was the closest to Korea.
Yeah. So they win all the worlds.
Right? They were winning worlds. So for this reason, I believe, like, it's really hard for me, because I'm on your side saying that this guy is very misrepresented as like one of the best top laner to ever exist, because I rank him way miles ahead of Smeb, for instance. But since he was his own, like, he was guilty of not performing in the crucial times of his career where he could have made it, I would say the take is too hard for me, right? Like, saying he wasn't his fault, I don't think is the case. Saying he was one of the best, and he probably would have won at least one international tournament if he stayed with T1, probably. But I don't think the perception of people would have changed that much of him being a choker.
Okay.
So here's the thing about Can is like, so like just like I've just like thought, right, I would say you've got like, and not to even break it down, you've got like your 5 like people I think are like candidates for GOAT in terms of like how you would want to break them up. And I would just do them quickly. I would just go Bin, Smeb, Keen, Nagure, Zeus, right? And you can chop them up however you want. He, for me, like kind of sits down in like the tier like just below them with like 369, Duke, Can, Koro 1, like Zoom. And then what's it called? The guy that's on
Can you add SOAS,
IG?
please? Can you put some respect on
IG,
that?
I'm forgetting his name. The Shy, sorry.
The Shy.
Okay,
Where they would be GOAT candidates, but it's like each of them have their own like fatal flaw. Like 369 just like has historic like choking issues, but he's got like insane longevity and insane team contribution. Duke has like unbelievable like peaks that you would never like believe. Hard carried like teams, won a world championship, but again just didn't do it for long enough. Koro 1, like the outright best for a period of time, domestic like top laner, was part of like the EDG that won like a bazillion tournaments on like a row. Like with the hallmark change, like Koro 1 was like the pivotal change and like Chinese top laners being not as good as like the Koreans, and then becoming as good as Koreans, went on to do the EDG stuff. Like, and you're right, Can's problem is like, and he doesn't share with them, Can has more opportunities than almost any other of the players on this list to do like great things. And he like falls into that thing where because he failed, there's something like kind of like appalling and repulsive about him because of the nature that he failed. Like in 2017, when he lost to Kuvi Top, right?
Sure.
That's like the mark of Cain against you. Like it's such a bad one to like lose. And obviously because R didn't happen, there's all this other like mitigating circumstances. But on a box score, you know what I mean? It's like Muhammad Ali getting knocked out in the first round. You know what I mean? Like, if that had happened, can he be like the goal? Like, you know what I mean? Stuff like that. The things that like Can really doesn't get a lot of respect for, just to unpack it, like how he like, okay, so first of all, he was just one of the outright best carry players ever. But he reinvented himself. Cam wasn't the outright best carry player on Dam 1. He was the tank facilitator player. He's actually got 2 like periods of play. I think he's got that famous like 12 game win streak on like Sion, where he's just like it was like Dam 1. Something like Dam 1 dropped every game. He wasn't on Sion for a period of time. It was like crazy. Like he completely like reinvented himself on Dam 1 gaming and stuff like that, where he like playing a completely like different style. I can't remember like what it was. It was something mental like that. It's in 2018. Another thing that really hurt his career is he was one of the Koreans that was hurt by going to China. If he hadn't went to FPX, by the way, right, and just stayed in fucking Korea, he would have had an insane run of being the best top laner in the LCK, because his run would have started in summer of 2017 and it would have ended in like 2019 with a little bit of Smeb when he was really good in summer. But you could have probably argued his run of form, if he hadn't, or like, you know what I mean, him going to that fucking FPX team really wrecked him, because I feel like people began to forget about him. And when he came back, he didn't really have like the team being built around him the same way it was on the Dam 1. Another thing that massively goes in Can's player, Can didn't always play with people when they were at their best, by the way. That's the other thing. Can actually played with the worst version of Faker, the worst version of Mata, one of the worst versions of Gorilla. He played with a pretty good version of Prey, nowhere near the best version of BDD, by the way. And he was still probably outright the best player in the world and all that. So the people, in terms of name value played and like Hall of Famers played with, he would rate really highly. But the idea that he played with like the best versions of them all the time kind of just isn't true. Like even the version of Showmaker Canyon that he played with weren't like as good as the previous year. Like people like to blame Flandry getting one over with him on the Gravetop. Why was fucking Canyon losing to JJ, who was like, what's that all about, mate? Like, Canyon, you're supposed to be the outright best player. And that, and so there's a lot of mitigating circumstances. If he is one of those what-if players, if you change, like, a couple of events in his chain, he doesn't just go from being like silver or bronze, he goes to being a diamond.
Put it this way, even though it's on a lower level, another thing that was making me think about this take was that I still watch now in bloody LCK, my boy Teddy still plays to this day, and he's still good. He's another player that, cause his time to be on T1 was that dreaded 2019 year, where I always tell people, it's not like you didn't even win, you lost to Europeans twice. So unfortunately, everyone on that teammate got a black mark against their name, and it's no wonder they moved on from them. I know what you mean. That was, by the way, that was probably the worst year to play with Faker, because he was like in between what used to be the best player becoming the great cat. I know what you mean. Like if he'd have been there a couple of years later, like in the Zays era, he'd probably win. If he'd been there before, instead of like fucking Duke, he could have won. You know what I mean? Like he just had the wrong time.
is literally the only year outside a little bit of summer 2014 where you can actually say Faker choked. Like, because if you actually go watch those games, Faker's got leads in some of them.
He's
actually getting like outplayed and stuff. That was where like people were beginning to be like, oh my god, like you can actually assign some of the blame to like Faker.
Yes.
And it's actually Faker's kind of like, and then it's funny because
I even think that's why people overrate Caps a bit, because they remember he did straight up beat Faker like 2 times in a big old fight. It's real. It happened. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So. And that's the thing about Can. The one thing I will say to him and his defense, and he has this where Nuguri's got this, and it's why I think like Nuguri's peak will never be forgotten, even though it sometimes doesn't coincide to the results. How far away like the delta? So like there's like you've got like the greatest like player of all time, but you've got like the most dominant. The difference between Can and the next best player in 2017 summer was like, bro, when he like, it was like the fucking atom bomb. Like when he appeared, it was like, you were just like, what is this? This is mental. That's why it was so shocking. When he left, he's like some like I Love Uv shit where he's just so much better than everyone else. So yeah, like he is someone that's like a circumstance of fate really hurt his career. And how he lost kind of hurt his career.
Anyway, whatever. Just one of those players I'm biased towards. Right? Okay, Keria, the last take belongs to you. What's your take?
Right, I think Vitality are going to double bomb straight out of LEC Playoffs.
What the fuck? Bro, I have him like winning. Holy shit, I'm going to double bomb and just really no match. Okay, bloody hell.
So you ready? Your Honor, I've got my case. I've got my fact files for you, right? Okay, let's go.
This is going to be the craziest hater take of all time. Hit me with it. Come on.
Okay, no, I ain't a hater, right? Okay, I bleed honey, I bleed yellow, right? Okay, but it's because I've got that. It's because I've got that in me. Right? I know, right? I ain't getting tricked. I ain't getting tricked.
Okay.
Right? So number one, Nako, like he's like fucking Powerpuffed. Where's he went? He's just dropped down 2 or 3 levels. He's like, there was respect on that man's name, right? Okay, he could the aura that man had, MVP candidate. It was like, he's now the most auraless like top laner ever. I've not seen him play in a couple of weeks. I don't even know if he's good anymore. Losing online qualifiers to tier fucking 4.5 players. I was like, you can't be telling me the winner is doing shit like that, right? Second of all, we got Linsas. The whole point of Vitality was finally we've got Linsas on board. He's actually maybe one of the best junglers in the league. And then we got to week 3 and no, he's gone. He's not the best jungler anymore. He's back to old mistiming Linsas. Fuck that. Like, no way. There's no way. Like, look at this state. Like, SkewMond. Yeah, he's mastered the fucking the crab. He's the tank man. He's got that little bit of the yike tank play, and he's also the best carry player. Like, how was Linsas got against that? Humanoid, mate, I need to say anymore, mate. Right, okay. Are we all just going to pretend? Okay. I was tweeting out that.
You got
picture.
this one. You can move on.
Listen, I can't lie. A part of me, almost the thing I enjoy every split is letting myself get tricked by Humanoid and going, he's got it together now. He's going to do it this time, and then get, fuck, he did it again. The rug pull. Okay.
No one has been tricked more by Larson and Humanoid than me, mate.
Sure.
I have bought every Larson and Humanoid stock I can. So no, this time I'm hitting sell, boys. I'm hitting sell, right? Okay. Because for once I'm going.
By the way, in contrast to the take earlier, the good news of this one is we'll know in a couple of weeks if he's even right. And I'll tell you what, if they actually do double bomb, this take becomes epic. We'll post it on social media and everything. This is a fucking spicy one. Keep going.
Right, and here's the fucking thing, okay? Like, Humanoid has entered that, like, fucking on territory, right? Where he can lose you any fucking game at any point in time, right? But he can win you any game at any point in time, right? Okay. Karzy, next person on the list, right? The Karzy files, right? Can this guy actually be, like, a good player just from game to game? Please, Karzy. I was like, I just don't get it, mate. There's inconsistencies. He's in and he's lost. These aren't the identities of a player, right? Okay. That's going to like go out and do all and Fleshy. Do I need to say more? Do I need to say anything about fucking Fleshy? Bro, this guy's got Bardol's worse than silver, right? Okay. Like people turn gold, but it's a silver Bardol, right? Here's all the fake data.
It's just one champion for that guy. Okay, whatever. Like, right? You just have to play Bard all the time. Just whatever. Bro, keep going. Bro,
here comes the fact files. This team's fake as fuck, right? Because they beat everybody when they were low power in the league because of the LEC format, right? So they caught the sleeping mad like roster. They caught G2 on like the downturn because they've decided like, okay, Vitality have got to play like 3 weeks straight of like games. It gave you this false sense of security that they're actually the top team, and then you've never got to see them play again. They've not actually proven themselves against like the Ryzen like GX squad and stuff like that. And a key detail here, right? Okay, is that they are playing, right? I'm pretty sure they play against Mad Lions first.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Koi. I always fucking get them mixed up. Or they called them the wrong thing. Fucking changing their names. So they've got Koi at the beginning. I think this is a dung matchup, by the way, because I think at the very end they've managed to get it together with the Alvaro linking up with Elyoya on the engage, and that magic that looks there. And the mid laner, what do you call it? Jojo. He's really came into like king of spring, mate. Like every single time spring comes round, he finds his form again.
Okay.
Also, if they go down into the lower bracket, I'm pretty sure they have to play. It's like Giant X is who they draw because they're the higher seed, so you get because they're the one, they get Giant X, right? Giant X is on the rise, boys. You know what I mean? It's Fat Noah season. I've bought my Giant. It's like they are doing it.
Listen, I know. He was okay with the Koi part. I wondered where he was going to go with it. You're now picking Giant X to beat them.
Yeah, you fucking better believe I'm picking Giant X to beat them, mate. Right? Okay?
Well, it's a hot take. I'll give you that.
I think because if you go watch Vitality's wins, they don't look replicable. It's like Juju beans and like sorcery and magic, and it's like they just get it over the line. Like Humanoid blinks into like G2's backline of Lysandra, insta pops like 2 people, and they cars they survive. That's not replicable. That's just okay. Yeah, you got to win that. Like you get to win that one. So I've got zero to no faith in this team whatsoever. Right? Okay, they are bombing straight out. Also, the coach of coaches, they've got more coaches than they've got players. Like so. And the drafts are just terrible. And I'm going to let these guys come in here, because I could talk for ages about the drafts and just everything that's wrong here, but these guys are flying. This bee is flying into the pond.
I mean, I like the take, because I felt like it would be such a Vitality thing to do. But this is the year where Arsenal is still in run for the PL.
Everything's possible, right?
Final.
Okay, I see, right.
Solari won the LFL after never qualifying for the EMEA final Masters. They even won EMEA. So I feel like it is a very tough year to predict what's going to happen, because everything feels upside down in sports and in esports as well. And Vitality has looked pretty good during the regular season, but thanks to Riot making the worst calendar of history of calendar maybe ever, I do believe, we haven't seen them performing on, I would say, the big stage. They should have been the people to go to Madrid instead of GX to kind of see their real level. But it was hard. GX was 4th during the winter, so they just took the 4th team of the winter. I believe the Vitality is capped in the sense of, I think they're a momentum-based team, and starting after a few weeks is going to be very hard, especially against Koi, who had back-to-back matches, and at least they've fixed a lot of their issues. I mean, the second game today was kind of bad against KC because Alvaro was on Karma again, but as long as he avoids enchanters and they really stick to their win con, I don't think that Fleshy is going to be able to just pick range in BO5 and win all bot lanes against Koi. And you know that when Alvaro can join with Elyoya, I think the danger level is much higher than Linsas and Vleshi. And so I'd say Vitality, although they have a very good match up top against Koi, because Mervin's not that great, I do think that Koi will win the winner side. So half of the take is secured from Keira. The problem comes from the loser bracket, because they go to GX. And GX is not a team that's really strong. I think they're super capped. Their bot lane's playing really bad, probably the worst they played in the last 3 years. About to probably leave the LEC because, at the end of the year, June has to retire for the military. Yes. So I don't think the drive is there. Like, it can be like, I don't know how you call it, the swan song, right, of June and Noah. But I believe like there is a lot of fatigue from June to play with Noah, who's performing the worst of his career, for sure. Enchanter meta is not good for them. I do believe in BO5, it's very hard for Isma to find consistent picks that he's confident on. I do think that Jackies doesn't have the depth of champion pool, and in direct matchup, a lot has performed the worst among all the opponents versus Nak. So while I believe Vitality will lose to MKOI, I think that you are absolutely out of your mind to think that they can lose in a BO5 versus GX. You would have said they will win in the loser and they lose eventually to even Navi or KC or G2. I would say, fair enough. I'm okay. I'm on board. But if Vitality loses a BO5 against GX, I think they just need to sell Nak and just focus on Counter-Strike at that point.
By the way, I'm with you.
That's how bad the performance would be.
You're not finished, okay?
No, that's it.
Okay. Yeah. Basically, the problem is, you even did it correct because you hyped us, but then right at the end, you fucked it with the GX one, didn't you? Mate, I always tell people this. The reason GX is literally my least favourite team to watch in LEC, by the way, even beyond the bad teams, is because they're so boring how predictable they are, Keria. Like, they're the only team that has, like, pure gatekeeper status where they can... I'm actually shocked they won that game, by the way, in the last week. Like, they normally can never beat a team better than them and just consistently beat the teams worse than them. And part of the reason why is their team is such an insane known quantity without any crazy variables. Like, you know exactly what you're going to get from the bot lane. You know you're going to get, like, a carry performance 1 out of every 3 games from Jackie's. You know the jungler's all right, but he probably has the whole game passed out from Giotto. And the lot guy, I actually think the lot guy is just, I don't even know how he survives in this team. He's just all right. He's just an okay player. But if I were them, I'd upgrade that. Jungle and top I'd have upgraded ages ago through the obvious ones. So, no, the way you fucked it is the GX take. Vitality will beat GX, mate. They'll probably even spank them. And with you, look, it's not impossible they can lose to Koi. That's plausible. And you did make a very valid point. It is true. If you go and look at the best 2 wins, which obviously the GX and the G2 and the MKOI ones, you're right, they did catch them at the worst moment in the whole season. They basically almost did the same thing with KC in the opening week, if you remember. They almost won that series too. So I will say the format definitely made them look more dominant than they were in that regard. Also, I do think this was actually, even though I understand they did the format specifically for the homestands, it did make the league crap to follow, in my opinion. Because as I always say, the thing I love about things like the LPL and the LCK is every week you know the best team plays. The idea that there were weeks where there's no G2 this week, right? This week there's no, I'm like, what? What are we talking about? Like, that just made the league weird for me. So I do think that sucked. With that said, though, listen, if you want to do the thing of they're not going to win the LEC, that's a good take in itself. All the things you said are valid. They are, every single player, yes, could let me down in theory in some way. But my problem is the idea they're going to come out last place in the playoffs. I think you've gone way too far on that one. And also, I will say, there's a bigger point that we're sort of making here. If you think about what we're actually talking also about the format of League of Legends. I've always said the biggest problem with League of Legends as someone who watches games like Counter-Strike is, because in every single Counter-Strike tournament, they last roughly a week, and every single week you get a playoffs, you get a quarterfinals, you get a semis, and you get a final. You have a really good sense after even 2 months of who actually is capable of winning a trophy. Like, there are teams that can make every playoff, but they'll never win the trophy. There are teams who get capped at the semi-finals. There are players who maybe they don't choke every time, but they do choke most of the time. Like, the problem in League you always get is you have to wait 9 weeks or something, and then you find out, does this guy choke? Oh shit, he still does choke. So the real problem with this is, say Humanoid does actually have an awesome playoff run. Well, true, based on the last playoffs, we shouldn't say that, but the last playoffs was months ago, and then what, we counted ones from years ago before that. So it's also like, if he ever does change and get better, it's not going to be instantly recognisable till he's in the playoffs. So I think, here's the thing, I think it was a good hot take, but as ever, like all good hot takes, a little bit too hot for my tastes. At the end, I need a drink of milk, something like that. I need to fucking relax, no more spicy food today.
See, when you see that 3-2 result on the lower bracket of Leaguepedia, you'll come before me. You'll
listen,
how did you know?
As I said, we will, if this somehow ends up being real, especially because now we'll have to lose to bloody GX, bro. If they actually do lose to GX as well, I'll get the social media people to do a special clip of this section where you get all your praise and your credit for being right for once. Anyway, let's just leave it at that.